Hi everyone, it's it's me again. It's me again. But anyway, tonight I've got some great guests. I have my usual guest. I have Anthony Brown. The great artist there. I have him with me today, and he's just here with me every week. And I think he's getting fed up with me. Don't know. No, he just enjoys it, and he likes the camaraderie. He likes everything. Likes the comments, you name it. He just likes it. And he's looking forward to tonight with Derek Shelmerdine, who's talking about Phil Spector. And it should be an interesting discussion, actually, if you know about Phil Spector, that is. So anyway, let's go. I just want to show a slide before I bring these wonderful guests up. And it's this, this was taken years ago when we all went over to New Ferry. And you can see me in the background. I'm looking away, funny enough, but that's me. And the majority of them on this photograph have passed on. And it's so sad. And I know another fella who's not well at all. He's not well. And it's so sad, it came up on a memory, and I was looking at them, the lads, that is. I was looking at the lads. So sad. It's enough upset me, when I seen it. And these are friends, I grew up with these. I grew up with these lads. Used to go out, for drinks and whatever, and it was great. One of the lads, I can't point him out, unfortunately, he's there. Chaz Chambers, and it was his 21st, and this is true, this is absolutely genuine. They shouted up for me, and I looked over the land, and I was all dressed up, ready to go, because we always wore suit and ties back in the day. And they said, are you ready? You come ahead, because we used to go to the pub. What the plan was, go to the pub, because like 21st in those days, was celebrated, but they were celebrated in the houses. Whoever house it was, whoever was 21, you went back to the house there, and just celebrated there. Just had a bevy, whatever it was, and sandwiches and cakes and things like that. Anyway, they shouted up for me, and I shouted over, okay, and they said, come ahead, we're ready. Are you ready? I said, I'm going to see Macbeth. No, I was going the Empire, show Macbeth. And I said, I'm going to see Macbeth. And one of them shouted, bring him along then, it's all right, it'll be all right. And that's genuine. Anyway, afterwards, I gets up to Chaz's house, because I miss like going to the pub and that. Went straight to Chaz's house. And one of the guys said, where's that fella you was bringing, that Mac fella? I said, no, I said, it was a play. He says, you what? And that's, and that's what springs to mind, with these lads. Absolutely wonderful lads, wonderful friends of mine. Miss them terribly. I really do. I miss them terribly because they were so nice. So nice. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to. Now, listen there, before I start, I've got to mention Gap Painting Services. They are the sponsors of the Frank Carlyle Show. And believe you me, if you want something done, get it done by these lads. They're all time saved. They're fully insured. They're quick. They're tidy. They're brilliant. They do a masterful job. Believe you me, they do a master. And I'm not just saying that. They do a masterful job, these lads. And, if you can get them in, please get them in. And if you're an OAP, you get a special discount. And it'll surprise you what kind of a discount you do get. even if you're an NHS worker, get them in. If you need a job doing, get them in, because you get a special discount too, just like the OAPs. Please get them in. They are brilliant, and I'm not just saying that. And you can always find their details on the thing below. You can always pick up the phone number, which is 0798 628 6357. You can always please get them. And they're the sponsors of the Frank Carlyle Show. And the commercial as well, not just domestic. So if you need any work getting done, just get these lads in. They are first class. And I just want to go through a few comments here. Even if Frank, hope you're doing good. Looking forward to Derek and Anthony. Oh, that's like coming on. Thank you. Lee Wizkids. Hi Frank, looking forward to tonight's lesson. Thank you, Lee. It's like a class, isn't it? Mark says, God's one of you that Frank on the photo. Always good to see old photos of memories, ones we've lost. Yes, Mark. Yes, unfortunately. And he carries on by saying, at first, Frank, I thought the one of you was the one in the front with glasses on. No, I was the good-looking fella there behind. With black hair. With black hair. Elaine Ellis, even and Frank and Anthony. And Derek, thank you, Lynn. And Shay McGowan, evening. He always used to get me a pint and a scotch, but it's Monday night now, They're there on the Friday, they're on the Thursdays or the Fridays, the scotches. And Stephen Mulholland, same social issues and everything, this man has with me. Steve Mulholland. Hi, Steve. I hope you're well. Have you been to Cuba yet? Are you going? Go to Cuba. Getting over there to see I think he's going out of this bloody cold. I'm freezing. Absolutely freezing. Dave Lunt. All the best for 2024, Frank. Health and happiness, my friend. Thank you so much. And the same to you, Dave, and your family and everybody else that surrounds you. Thank you so much, Dave. And Dennis Paparak, all the way from Tampa. All the way from Tampa. Look, may the sun shine. We're freezing here. Absolutely freezing. Especially where I'm sitting now. Cold. And hello, Frank, says Dennis. Hello, Dennis. All the best for 2024, fella. And Stephen says, not until April. Oh, okay, I might come with you. Over there to Cuba. We haven't got Valley on tonight. She's out with her son. She's having a chat with her son because she's over this week. And, they're going through some things and he's helping her and whatever. Anyway, I'm going to bring in now this wonderful man, the old Oppo, and it's Anthony Brown. Good evening, Anthony.
Good evening, Sir Frank. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
You look
all
good.
All the better seeing you.
All the better seeing you. And that's a wonderful, poignant way to start the show. I saw with the photos of your friends. It's wow. I always said to Lainey that the first thing I would like to do when I reach the pearly gates is find the man who invented cameras and shake his hand, buy him a pint or whatever, because where would we be without these wonderful memories, photos?
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? See, we take photographs with our eyes, don't we? This is why we've got, such wonderful memories when we can look back. But when you get a picture, as I just shown there,
yeah,
it brings all that memories back out there.
there's certain things that just reignite moments, don't they? And music is one. I know we talk deeply about music. What a powerful tool it is for that. Photography is definitely another, and smells.
Yes.
Gosh, how often do we walk into a place and smell? I used to love the smell of the old St John's Market when you
Oh,
walk
right.
in, and there was
Yeah.
the coffee going on over there, and then something here, and it took me right back to childhood. Obviously,
And you know, it's funny you saying that. Do you know what I love the smell of? Remember coal fires? You know the
yeah,
coal hole where the coal used to be? I
yeah,
used to love the smell of that. And
yeah,
when the coal men used to come, to deliver coal, and I
yeah.
love the smell of coal, strangely enough. Is there something wrong with me? I don't know.
Takes you back to a place. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, just before I bring Derek on, Dennis Paparak, he should be interested in Derek because waiting for an official invite to play at the IPO this year will be late May, early June. That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic, Dennis, because Dennis is in a band called the Incurables.
Oh, brilliant.
You couldn't make that up, could you? Well, I should have seen them at the Cavern last year. The year just gone.
Yeah,
And I was looking forward to going. Well, I did go there and meeting up with Derek, with Dennis and his mates. I went into the wrong venue. I went into the Cavern Club, and they were
oh,
playing over the
yeah.
road in the Cavern pub.
Oh, yeah, that's always
Mister,
an issue. Yeah.
Mister. Oh, oh. And Mark says, I'll just go through these. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry. There's JK there.
Mark,
Les Rose, Frank and Anthony. JK, love you, mate. Redbirds, LJ Frankie boy and Mr. Scott me full the flu. I'm feeling dog rough, but hey, we move on. Absolutely. And this Valley. Hello, everyone. My son should have arrived soon visit, but I wanted to say hello from Ohio. Isn't that lovely?
hey, Valley, good evening.
And she says hello to you. And then Bird says, Hi, Valley. Bye, Valley. As you do. Fantastic. Rata Schofield. Good to see you, Frank. Hope you're as well as you look. Thank you. Anthony, you look as though you are going to enjoy this evening show. Well, that's nice, isn't it?
I am Arthur. I always do, and it's a double joy to be able to offer twopence eighty worth.
Isn't that
Yeah.
lovely? It's just lovely. Our people are absolutely based up, because they're such good people. And wait till this fella comes on now. Gary Rigby. Evening, everyone. The IPO festival is great. I saw some great groups on there. Yes, of course you would have done. And I hope to see the Incurables with Dennis Paparak. I'm going to bring on this fella here. This fella who knows everything about everything. Music. Absolutely brilliant, this fella. Derek Shelmerdine. Hiya, Derek.
Hi, Frank. Good to be back, mate. Hi, Anthony.
Thank you.
Good evening, Derek. Nice to see you. I caught your show with Frank the other month, which we were talking about Steve Marriott was part of the show, and you talking about all sorts of stuff. It's a pleasure to meet. Looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, Phil Spector's a great topic. It really is.
Yeah.
And Valley says, hello, Derek.
Hi.
My little Valley. Hello, Derek. She's waiting for the lad to come, actually. Her son, Jack. And hang on. Some bad names here, boys. Dementia Runner. I love your YouTube videos, Frank. I've learned so much about our lovely home city. Stay with us, and you'll be learning more in the second hour. And you'll be learning loads now about Mr. Phil Spector, because this is what Derek's going to discuss now about this great producer. No matter how you look at this man, Phil Spector, one of the greatest of all producers of the music. And before we start on him, Derek, I'm going to say this. When he produced some John Lennon's, the album.
Yep.
I said this, believe it or not, I said this to Benny King himself. I said this. I said, I was calling him Benny, and he said, excuse me, and he said, excuse me, and he went away to get he only drank water, and he went away to get a drink of water, and Percy Sledge said, it's Ben E. I said, it's not Benny. He said, no. He said, and honestly, he came back. I'm sorry, Ben E. I said, I'm calling you Benny. He said, presidents have called me Benny, so it's no exception. What a gentleman. But anyway, I said to him about Stand By Me. I don't know what your take is. Don't tell me yet. Just let me finish on this. And I said, the best cover version of Stand By Me was by John Lennon. And he went, yes. That's what he said. So
yeah. It is a great cover.
It is. So what do you think, Derek? Before you start, Derek has a book out called Rock and Roll Unraveled. I've got it here somewhere. I can't reach over to get it. And it's like an encyclopedia. It's like that. It's like an encyclopedia. It's absolutely amazing. And if you just purchase it. It's absolutely brilliant. If you like your music, you like your bands, and I'm talking about every band. I'm talking about everything. It's all in Liverpool. Rock and Roll Unraveled, and you can see it there at the bottom of the screen. So, go ahead. I'm sorry about this. Funny enough, Phil Spector produced a Ramones album, but it's not the best. It's not the best. The band hated it. That's what Gary Rigby says. Okay, Phil Spector, tell us all about him and how he started and what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the Ramones gig comes well towards the end of what we're going to be talking about. It's lots of interesting stuff he's done. I think you could fairly say that Phil Spector is unique. I mean, one of the most famous record producers. And I think there's Wall of Sound, his most famous era, first half of the 60s. What was interesting, I'm very much from that era. And you didn't talk about the new Ronette single, the new Crystal single. You talked about the new Phil Spector single. And to put him into context, how important he is, if you like, to the industry, he was inducted into only the 4th rock and roll inductions for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. The first one was in 86. And he was inducted the same year as Otis Redding and the Rolling Stones and the Temptations. But he start right at the beginning. He was born in 1939 in New York, and his Wall of Sound was very much multi-layering instruments. But the irony is, he was a massive fan of mono. And in 91, he produced the sort of 4 CDs retrospective, and included in the box was a pin, a badge that said "Back to Mono." When you think, the whole essence of Spector is he's got a massive sound. I think that's a lovely little touch. And when he was only 9 years old, he had quite an impact on him. His dad committed suicide, Ben Spector. And on his tombstone, the father's tombstone, it's inscribed, "To know him was to love him." And if that sounds familiar, it's because the first single he ever had a hit with was called "To Know Her Is to Know Him Is to Love." Sorry, "To Know Him Is to Love Him." Just changed the tense. That was the Teddy Bears. That was in May of '58, 3 years before the war.
Did the females sing that as well?
Well, there was a female, the female voice in that was Annette Kleinbard, and she later found her own fame as Carol Connors. So hers was really, if you like, the lead vocal, I think.
Yeah.
Spector played guitar, sang backing vocals. He also produced it. And what it was actually released as the B-side. The A-side was "Don't You Worry, My Little Pet." So obviously there's some Newcastle blood in him there somewhere. And the DJs just loved the B-side, "To Know Him's to Love Him." They flipped it, and it gave him his first hit record. Number 1, which is not bad for a debut single in America. Number 2 over here. And after that, he decided, he obviously liked the production side, so he became a house producer at Atlantic Records. He was there from about 1960 and 61. And that's where he met Lester Sill. He worked with him. Lester Sill's the guy we'll talk about in a few minutes, when he formed his own record label for the Wall of Sound, Crystals, Ronettes, Righteous Brothers and stuff. That was the Phillies label. And that's where the name came from, Phil and Les, basically. But he was also very involved with Lieber and Stoller. And he was a session guitarist. And he worked with people like Benny King and the Coasters. And apparently he does the guitar solo on the Drifters on Broadway. And then he started doing production gigs with Atlantic Records. He worked with people like Ray Peterson, Karina, Curtis Lee, Pretty Little Angel Eyes. I mean, that's quite a classic. And he worked with a couple of real R&B classic acts at the time. I mean, Laverne Baker and Ruth Brown. And Ruth Brown was the biggest star that Atlantic had at the time. In fact, her nickname was the house that Ruth built. And I think it's a bit of a play on the Babe Ruth baseball days, because he had a similar kind of nickname. And he recorded actually.
He was a baseball player, wasn't he, Babe Ruth?
He
was a baseball player, yeah.
Yeah, apparently he's an absolute legend. He still holds all kinds of records, apparently. I mean, I don't know much about the sport, but I know that if you're into baseball, Babe Ruth is one of the heroes of the genre.
The game, yeah.
But he recorded the first, produced the first version of Twist and Shout. Again, he's still
by the Isley Brothers.
That's part of the story. What happened was.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just go on, carry on. I'm sorry. No.
I just going to say. I mean, at Atlantic, he recorded it with a group called the Top Notes, and that was released as a B-side. And the guy who wrote it, Burt Burns, not very happy at all with the Phil Spector version. So what happened was he took it to Wand and record label and the Isley Brothers, and Burt Burns, as well as being a writer, he's a major producer. And he produced the Isley Brothers at Wand, and that gave the Isley Brothers their first big hit. That tends to be, I think, why the Isley Brothers is often thought of as the original version. But technically, the Top Notes preceded that by several months. And of course, the Beatles version is very, very well known, and it's one of the real popular ones, I think, from the early days.
There's some wonderful early Beatles material, which obviously they revered what Phil was doing, because you mentioned before to know him is to love him. I'm sure that was on the Decca audition tapes for the Beatles.
It was
McCartney singing it, yeah.
Yeah, the Beatles used to play it in the early days.
Yeah, so the parallels between their careers, long before they met, really were quite profound, weren't they? But the Beatles' version of Twist and Shout was just brilliant. And then onwards to 1969, where Phil worked with the Beatles in their twilight years. Just brilliant.
Well, do you know the girl bands at the time, Phil Spector. Now, I've always wondered. Well, I always thought that he actually pulled them together. Say like he's seen 3 singers. Yeah, you 3 get together and give us a song. That sort of thing. He made them.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, do they? Yeah. All I'm glad about.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, there's a little story coming up in about 30 seconds that shows just how interchangeable Phil Spector's acts were. I mean, we're now at the Phillies record label, and this is the Wall of Sound. Phillies was the label released in America. They were released mostly on London American and other associated labels in the UK. But really, we just stick really with the American stuff because it is very much an American sound. I mean, the Crystals were his first band. They released their first hit. There's No Other Like My Baby. That was the first ever single on Spector's label, and it gave him a number 20. And then they followed that up in the April of 62, with a song called Uptown, much better known. And that got them into just under the top 10. And this is where it gets interesting. The follow-up to Uptown, in the July of 62, the Crystals released a song called He Hit Me, and in brackets, and it felt like a kiss, close brackets. Now, as you can imagine, the critics and the public took a fairly dim view of this and how that song came about. It was Jerry Goffin, Carole King's song, Goffin and King, big brill building songwriters. Little Eva, Do the Locomotion fame, she was their babysitter. And she came along one evening, covered in bruises. And they said, what on earth happened? And she said, oh, it's my boyfriend. He hit me and it felt like a kiss. So Goffin and King turned that into a song, and it was released. And I say it did get an official release. But it was quickly withdrawn. Now, this is where it gets quite interesting, I think, and really tells you a lot about Spector. Is that he now needed a follow-up because that was withdrawn, as I say, and the Crystals weren't available, and he'd already got a song lined up, He's a Rebel, written by Gene Pitney, but the Crystals weren't available to record it. So what Phil Spector did, he brought Darlene Love, one of his other acts. She had songs with a band called Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, and also solo singles with Spector on his label. And she had a backing group called The Blossoms. And on the 13th of July, 1962, Darlene Love and The Blossoms recorded He's a Rebel. Well, when that was released on the 6th and went into the charts on the 6th of October, 1962, it was released as a Crystal song. And the first the Crystals heard it, it was when it was being introduced on the radio. And now the latest Crystal single, He's a Rebel. And then the car going, what? What's this? And ironically, it gave him his first American number one. So it was very, very successful. But it just shows, Phil Spector, not really audacity. I mean, it really was the Phil Spector sound. And it just shows there how, they're all great singers, all the lead singers of the various bands. And you got Ike Tina Turner coming up shortly as well, another pretty good singer. So, they really did all complement each other, really, in a way.
Can I say something there? I think
Absolutely.
This is great. I think there's two comments here. One is Stephen Mulholland. I hate people who wear rock band T-shirts but never own an album by that band, that particular band. Now, Stephen also says, R.I.P. to Tony Clarkin, the guitarist with the most underrated rock band in the UK, Magnum. And this one, I know we're going off the subject. We're just digressing for
Absolutely.
And it's what Mark Kinnish asked. And he says, Derek, what do you think of the new demo Beatles song last year, Now and Then?
I thought it was very good. I wouldn't say it was one of their absolute classics. And they had been working on it for some years. And apparently it was the state of the current technology that enabled them to actually clean up the old tapes sufficiently to be able to release it as a commercial release. And it's almost certainly going to be this one song single. And it's interesting now, of course, when you're in a quiz And the question is, what was the Beatles' last UK number one? It's no longer the ballad of John and Yoko. It's now Now and Then. So, you know, the question must have probably been...
I didn't know that the ballad of John and Yoko was the last number one hit.
It was in their lifetime, yeah. Before this one, it was the last hit. Let It Be was, I think Let It Be only got to number 2, I think.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's what I mean about having you on. You know, I get to know all these. Well, they're not trivial, really. Yeah. It's not trivial. It's fun. What do you? Can I go to Tony, please? Andy, what do you think of Now and Then by the Beatles?
I totally agree with Derek. I mean, this is someone who I grew up with their soundtrack, so I'm going to love whatever they did. But I have a couple of issues with, not so much with them, but with the way I think music is going now. I kind of like the song, but I saw it really as an album track rather than a single. But they proved us wrong, because, you know, 50 or 60 years down the line, they hit number one again. So I'm glad of that. But I felt that the addition of the AI on the tidy up of John's vocals and stuff like that is leading us down a path of, because we're already into the situation where there's lots of modern pop bands who can't actually sing that great. So they have compressors and digitizers and everything that will balance a voice, make it sound in tune, which to me kind of goes against the grain of music. Because you wouldn't have, you go back to Buddy Holly and you can hear Buddy Holly's demo tapes, and he's in his apartment stuff, and you can still sing and you can still play without all the frills. And then you move that generation forward, and it's only really until we're in modern times where you're not sure if it's real or if it's computer generated. To me, I think that's a sadness with the way music's going. And I totally agree with the quote before. I don't know if it was from Mark about the T-shirts. I've got a wardrobe full of T-shirts of stuff that I love. Some I've never seen live. Jimi Hendrix died a few years before I was able to buy a ticket. But but in terms of that track, I did enjoy it. I did like it. I did buy it, and I bought it for the kids, because our twins, they reached their 22nd birthday almost a day, hit number one. So it's like, that's, you know, remember your birthday with that. But I love everything they've done.
What do you think of Soulboy Fran there? I was going to call you Phil then. I love Phil Spector production of Sonny Charles and the Checkmates, Proud Mary. Absolutely stunning production. What do you think of that comment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Phil Spector's done some awesome stuff that, was on albums or on singles. A lot of things that end up as things like Northern Soul now because nobody bought them at the time. I mean, that's a great example. And there's so many other great examples. And just following on from what Anthony was saying there, up until the early 1960s, records were effectively recorded live in the studio. You know, they put a screen around the drummer to stop too much drumming coming out on the guitar tracks, as it were. And they effectively played live. A lot of very famous songs are recorded in 2 or 3 takes. And what they were effectively doing was playing live in the studio. I mean, look at someone like Joe Meek recording in his house, basically. And he'd record sometimes in the hallway and certainly in the bathroom because he'd get better echo effect. And I think, I mean, now you've got pitch control and all kinds of stuff. So even I could sound good if I was singing. And singing is not one of my strengths, sadly. I would love to be able to sing. My dad sings.
Well, Anthony's in a band, you know. I don't know whether he's still, you know, I think he's got together now and again, don't you, Anthony?
We do, sadly, not as much as we should do, really.
No.
Kind of more my thing. I walked away to punt around with paintbrushes and stuff, and the music kind of took a second place. But never say never, Frank. I still play, and the lads, there's only a 3-piece of us, but the boys still play as well in different bands and stuff. So it's still there that we'll get out and play. No.
Okay, well, I just want to mention a couple of comments on the straight back to Derek, because this is for him. Gary Rigby says, Now and Then was rejected for the anthology in the 90s, and I can see why it's very forgettable in my opinion. And George Harrison also didn't like it. And Dementia, what a name, Dementia Run. I love the name. I love Motown songs. And Soulboy. Did Derek mention Lieber Stoller, who wrote a lot of songs for Atlantic?
Oh, that's right. I mean, Phil Spector, when he's working at Atlantic, he was very much working with Lieber and Stoller. I think he got Lester Sill to introduce him to Lieber and Stoller, because he moved from the West Coast to the East Coast part of the way through that whole Atlantic thing. But I mean, by the time you get to 63, you're getting into some of the real classics like the Crystals, the Do Ron Ron, and the Crystals, Then He Kissed Me. And what's interesting with Phil Spector as well, bands sort of die away. And as the Crystals were coming to the end of their life, the Ronettes came onto the scene, and they had their first hit with Be My Baby, which is...
Here's another question for you, because you're talking about them. Why was it always mostly girl bands he produced?
It's an interesting one, that. I mean, it was almost all girl bands. I mean, Bob B. Sox and the Blue Jeans had Darlene Love as one of the lead singers, and another guy whose name escapes me for the moment as the other lead singer. But by and large, the wall of sound really revolves around the Crystals, Ronettes, Darlene Love. And then we get to the second, third stage with the Righteous Brothers, of course, which were a couple of guys. And cannot go past 1963 without mentioning the Christmas album. Every year now, there are at least 2 or sometimes 3 songs in the British top 100 from that album in 1963. Actually released on the same day as John F. Kennedy's assassination, 22nd of November. Yeah. And Brian Wilson appears on it, the guy from the Beach Boys. He plays piano on a couple of tracks. And Sonny Bono, because Sonny Bono actually worked for Phil Spector. He plays percussion on stuff. He's credited with stuff on various Phil Spector albums. And the last hit the Crystals had was in 64 with a song called I Wonder. And then he got the Ronettes Walking in the Rain. And that was pretty much the end of the Ronettes. We're now at the back end of 1964. And he was looking for the next big thing. And that, of course, was the Righteous Brothers. Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield, not actually brothers. I mean, they'd been around a time before Phil Spector got involved with them. They released half a dozen or so singles on the Moonglow label. The first one was Little Latin Loopy Loo. And they had no chart success. And then they got involved with Phil Spector. And of course, the Christmas of 1964, You've Lost That Loving Feeling. And one of the biggest songs of all time.
Absolutely.
The BM. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say
that one song just hits every living room, certainly in England. It was just amazing. Just outstanding.
I used to sing that to my girlfriends.
Brilliant. I mean, what a song. The BMI has reported that it's the most played song on radio and television in the 20th century.
Wow.
So, certainly some royalties have been earned from that. But of course, the Righteous Brothers had four, I think, hits with Phil Spector. But a lot of the relationships from here on in sort of end in tears when people are involved with Phil. Because what happened was he decided to Phil Spector decided to add his name to the writing credit for the B-side. And of course, it then gave him a third of the royalties. And the two Righteous Brother guys, Medley and Hatfield, had written it. So they were never really all that happy about that. And they decided that they would move on. And they went to MGM, record label. So Phil Spector promptly sued MGM. So now he's looking for his next new big thing. And that, of course, was Ike and Tina Turner, and another absolute classic.
Yes.
Because they've been together. I mean, Ike Turner is one of the really overlooked guys in rock and roll history. The first rock and roll record's often cited as being Rocket 88, and about 51, I think it's recorded. But it was actually Ike Turner's Kings of Rhythm that had hired the studio at Sun to record that. And Jackie Brenston, sax player, he recorded 2 songs that day, and Ike Turner recorded 2 songs that day. So they put 2 out as Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats, Rocket 88 being one of them, and 2 out as Ike Turner and his Kings of Rhythm. And sadly for Ike Turner, the other one went out and put Jackie Brenston into rock and roll history books. And it was very much him that encouraged and started Tina Turner's career. But what's interesting? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I have to come in there because Gary Rigby says Bonnie Joe Mason, Ringo, I Love You, aka Cher, a classic produced by Spector. I'm going to surprise you here. No, you surprised me by saying about Bono. Did he actually produce Sonny and Cher himself? Phil Spector, that is.
But Cher was a backing singer on, I think it was River Deep, Mountain High. Okay. And Sonny Bono introduced, it's interesting. No, it couldn't have been River Deep. It must have been earlier than that. I can't remember. She was a backing singer on one or two of the really big ones. And because, Sonny and Cher, Sonny Bono was working closely with Phil Spector all the time. He was on the payroll, basically. And so he introduced Cher, and she acted as backing singer. But Phil Spector must never have picked up on her, mustn't have been quite the right place at the right time, because it in a parallel universe somewhere, instead of Ike and Tina Turner, you could imagine Cher would have been able to have handled the same kind of vocal strength as Tina Turner. But it never quite worked out. I mean, Tina Turner came onto the scene. Well, Ike and Tina Turner, although the record does actually separately credit featuring Tina Turner, which I thought was quite nice.
Well, River Deep, as you mentioned, River Deep, Mountain High, that just, Anthony had known this, that just blasted out in Liverpool in every pub you walked into. Yeah. You couldn't get away from it. It was absolutely, it's still brilliant today. It's still, from the puts up and go on.
It will fill any dance floor now. And I don't know if it's Phil who did Nutbush City Limits for them, which are kind of, we got to hear around the same time, River Deep and Nutbush. And all of that stuff at that time will fill any dance floor, probably in any country in the world. And it's version on soul music to heavy metal, because it just takes off the roof.
Yeah, what's really irony is not the right word for it. I mean, now that song is considered right up there with some of the best rock and roll songs of all time. At the time, it was a dismal failure. It marked the end of the Wall of Sound. It crawled into the American charts at number 98. Over the next 4 weeks, it crawled up to number 88, and then the following week it dropped out of the charts completely. I mean, it was quite a big hit. It was a number 3 in the UK, but in America, for who knows what reason, it really did not click with the record buying public at all. I mean, Spector was devastated by this, and he'd released a handful of singles after that. The Ronettes, "I Can Hear Music," later covered by the Beach Boys, was actually the last number 1. It only got to 100, and in fact, the very last single. Well, no, in fact, that was, yeah.
I'm sorry, Derek. Does he? You know the Shirelles at the time,
yeah.
And you mentioned as well, Little Millie. Was it Little Millie? The Locomotion. The Little
Lever.
Little Lever. Little Millie. Anyway, did he produce them? Like the Shirelles and the likes of Little Lever. Did he produce them?
No, he didn't produce them.
Okay.
I think Lieber and Stoller were involved in. Lieber and Stoller did a lot of production as well. They had their own record label for a time called Spark, and that's where the Coasters, I think, started. Well, they were the Robins at that time, I think.
Soulboy Friend mentioned that.
Yeah, Phil Spector at that period, he had this sort of small group of art. Well, not too small, I suppose. He produced, hundreds of different singles and tracks and stuff. But what was interesting is, his name was very prominently produced by Phil Spector. And now, then when you get past River Deep Mountain High, that last one I just mentioned, the Ronettes, it's actually got on the label producer Jeff Barry, who was one of the writers of the song. And the last ever single was from Ike and Tina Turner. I think it's a brilliant song. "Love Like Yours, Don't Come Knocking Every Day" was the last single on Phillies. And there's no producer listed at all. So, the River Deep Mountain High failure really, really made its mark on Phil Spector. And it's so difficult to believe when you look at that song now. Just, its place in the sort of rock and roll pantheon. Absolutely incredible.
Do you know? So I get the impression about Phil Spector, to be honest. It's like historically, I'll say this historically, an example historically. I've always said, and I'm actually quoted as saying this when someone's doing essays or whatever, dissertations. Liverpool was the Ellis Islands of Europe, right? Now, do you reckon that Phil Spector was the George Martin of America?
Yeah, I reckon in a sense of, I mean, he really was the fifth Beatle. I mean, he was a very, very important part of the Beatles sound. And again, what's interesting is he wasn't a rock and roll producer. He produced jazz, he produced comedy, the Goons, and the likes. And it was really one of his very early ventures into pop music. But I think it was the extraordinary talent that was Lennon McCartney in terms of songwriting. And, coupled them with George Martin as the producer. You can see how the Beatles developed, like all the beat groups that started. There were cover bands. And then one or two of the bands started writing their own material, the Beatles being one of the first. And that's one of the really big differences between the first half of the 60s and the second half of the 60s. Rock music came along in 65, 66, with the likes of Cream, Jimi Hendrix in this country, and the Doors, Jefferson Airplane and the like. In America, and that marked a real change to the bands themselves writing most of their own material. And I think Phil Spector has that same kind of aura about him almost. I said it right at the beginning. I mean, you didn't talk about the new Ronettes single. You talked about the new Phil Spector single, and he's a rebel. He recorded with one of his groups. And then released it under another of his group's names. And, not a particularly well-documented fact that. I mean, it's completely true. But it comes as a great surprise to a lot of people that it wasn't the Crystals. And I think Phil Spector has really just got to be up there with the best producers that have ever lived. And
Well, what you were talking about there, I've got to mention this. And Scary Rigby said, I didn't know that failed. This is River Deep Mountain. I didn't know that failed in the States. It's a classic 1966.
Yeah.
And I'll just go on to these, still with you. Dementia Runner. Dementia Runner. I think that's making Dementia Runner. Wasn't Phil Spector a bit nuts?
Well, he apparently wasn't the easiest of people to work with. He would just go his own way, as with the using somebody to record it, then calling it.
But John Lennon said it though, didn't he? He said he was very hard to work with.
Oh yeah, I mean, just about everybody now. We start talking about Leonard Cohen, the Beatles, because we're now at the end of 1960s when Phil Spector turned the Get Back tapes into the Let It Be album. But pretty much a lot of his ventures then, like the Ramones, Leonard Cohen, they all ended in tears. He was famed for waving guns around. I mean, he eventually went to prison for it. But and you mentioned the John Lennon rock and roll album, which Phil Spector produced for John Lennon during his long weekend of 18 months.
I thought that after 18 months, the long weekend, I thought really that was one super album. I really did. I just think it was fantastic and all that.
Oh, it was a good album.
Lennon at his best. That's what I thought.
From the heart, wasn't it, the songs, and I think the partnership certainly in the beginning of that album was tremendous. And then what went on in the middle with Phil kind of losing it a bit and disappearing with the tapes, and all kind of in hindsight adds to the whole myth of what a great album. But I just want, from my kind of objective on Phil, he seems to be going. What he was inventing was like Picasso or like someone. He was going somewhere where no one else had been before, with his soundscapes, with his production, with the music, was getting bigger and better. And at a point, we mentioned, and a few of our team had mentioned Motown. Now Motown started to kind of dip in and copy their version of what I think was Phil's thing. And it's like any painter, like any musician, that if you produce something that's a wow factor, then somebody's going to copy it. So it seems to have got to a stage where the industry was sampling Phil Spector's creativity, and Phil Spector wasn't either able to or didn't want to compete. No other point.
I think that's a crack at that, because I want to pick up on what Derek said before. And he said, when, I think you were mentioning the Ronettes at the time, and you said, that it wasn't like, say, a song, I love Frank, right? That's the title of a song, a song by the Ronettes. And yes, it'll be I Love Frank, a new Phil Spector production.
Yeah.
And how did they feel? How did the artists feel about Phil Spector being mentioned before the singers? How do you think they felt? Do you think they felt a little bit envious?
They could have done. I think the thing about the whole Phil Spector stable was that it was different to say, Motown. I mean, interesting enough, the last ever Phil Spector single was written by Holland Dozier Holland, that A Love Like Yours Don't Come Knocking Every Day. So, you can see that the overlap is very much there. I think if you worked with Phil Spector, you just knew you were working with Phil Spector. Uh,
I made
yeah,
up. You said that. I made it. Just bear me out on these. I'm glad you said that. Right, this one, and it's by Gary actually. He was a perfectionist, of course,
absolutely.
which people couldn't handle. Now, John Lennon was a perfectionist, and
Mm,
Paul McCartney, the pair of
mm,
them were
mm,
perfectionists, and we've seen that in the Get Back, documentary. Absolutely perfectionist they were.
mm.
So you can imagine Lennon, because I knew that he argued with Phil Spector quite a lot during that particular album. And Gary carries on by saying he wasn't as nuts as Kim Fowley.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody mentioned the Ramones album, end of the century. That was like 1979. Phil
Yeah.
Spector produced the Ramones. And what you were just saying about being a perfectionist, I mean, it really shows if you look at the stats there. They spent 3 weeks recording it. And then Phil Spector spent 6 months mixing it. It was recorded in the May of '79. It wasn't released till the January of 1980. And what I thought was really interesting is one of the tracks on that was the "Baby I Love You," and the Ramones version in the UK when it came out in 1980 made number 8. When the Ronettes version came out in 1964, it only made number 11. I was quite surprised when I spotted that particular statistic. But what they said was very much, I mean, the Ramones and Spector didn't get on at all. There's talk of being locked in studios, Spector waving a gun around all over the place. And apparently a typical Ramones album would cost about $60,000 to make. And end of the century, the Phil Spector one apparently cost $200,000 to make. And the original contract was for 2 albums, but neither Phil Spector nor the Ramones could stomach working with each other anymore. But it was exactly what you were saying about being a perfectionist. What really got annoyed the Ramones was the constant retakes and the constantly doing the same thing over and over again. So I think the Ramones gives a great example of that side of Phil Spector.
Derek, time's up. I'm awfully sorry.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. That's great. I really enjoyed it, Frank.
No, I'd love you to carry on about Phil Spector, but do you know what I'd like you to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody agrees. It's about a producer, and I think everybody will agree that when you talk about George Martin, all you're associating with is the Beatles. Because you talk about Phil and George the next time you're on.
About George Martin?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no problem at all.
The pair of them, and some of the bands as well.
Sorry, who else as well as George Martin, Frank?
No, I'm just saying some of the bands that they actually produced.
Oh,
because
yeah.
There's, I just let me go through a couple of. Mark Kinney says, I think Phil Spector worked with John Lennon on the Imagine album, right? That's what he says.
Yeah.
And
he worked a few times with Lennon.
Right. He wasn't the right guy for the Ramones, who were basically a garage punk. That's what Gary Rigby says. Soulboy says, I think Motown was more about the house band, the Funk Brothers, rather than the production.
Yeah.
And
because you've got the Wrecking Crew, of course, working with Phil Spector. Similar kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, some of the bands as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to. Do you know what? I can't think of the bloody band now. And I was going to ask you for the next time. Can I get hold of you? Can Jason get hold of you and mention a band it's from the 60s, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you who it is. Am I getting mixed up now? I thought I might be getting. It's that dementia thing. There's a dementia runner. Oh, is it the blimey? The Trogs, is it? No, he was out at. Oh, bloody hell. Who sang Wild Thing? Was it the Trogs?
That's the Trogs, yeah.
Oh, would you talk about them?
Trogs, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. So that's Phil Spector carry on with his thing, his biography, right? And also George Martin. I'd like you to compare the two of them, if you don't mind. You know, besides the Beatles, that is, with George Martin in particular. And also the Trogs, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. That'd be good fun.
And I tell you another fella, that's him, Scott McKenzie.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy.
Please, will you talk about them then next time?
Right.
I'm sorry, it's a whole show. And we'll have you on in the second half along with Anthony. Is that all right? So that'll be 2 hours.
Okay.
You don't mind that?
No problem at all, mate.
So in a couple of weeks, I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, Derek, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I just can't believe this. Mark Simons, let's just... Dementia on his face, don't be blaming me. Great, isn't it? And Gary Rigby says the Trogs were brilliant.
Absolutely.
And Mark Simons says, fed paranoid after the Manson murders and took guns everywhere, even shooting in the studio with John Lennon, after which John cries out, I need my ears, Phil. How happens the rose he took it away. It's just absolutely nuts, isn't it? These are great comments. Motown was a big in the 80s as well as in Liverpool, says Dementia Runner. And Trogs tapes were funny, the studio outtakes, yeah. Did he sing Slipping on a Slide, Lennon, on that album?
I can't remember, to be honest. I think he did.
Because did he? That's brilliant. I found it on YouTube. It's brilliant. And he's singing it live.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? I don't know. I pretend that that's a mic. I should just pull that over. But Derek, thank you so much. So, you know, if that's okay, you and Anthony for 2 hours. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
thank you so much. And I can't wait for those things, you know, you'll be talking about as well. And I suppose some of the people on here will ask about certain bands and whatever, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine. Absolutely.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Derek. And
my pleasure.
now, just hang around for a couple of minutes, because honestly, just hang around. And there's a little break, and I'll see you after the break.
Okay.
And here's what Jason's putting up.
As with the Port of Liverpool building, again, Cunard, there was no expense spared because of the lucrative. Further down into the Cunard building, here we have the air. Further down into the Cunard buildings, here we have the room was very basic, as you can see, but the rooms were very basic, but at least the You frightened the ass out of me. I don't know what was coming through. And I'll start talking as I'm coming down. This is the finest Back here in the North End's entrance, we have shouldn't have said that on camera, should I? The magnificent hall houses the magnificent hall houses. Oh no, I'm getting old. That's you, Willie. The magnificent hall houses
Is home to.
Yeah. The magnificent hall is home to the Willis organ, and it was the biggest. That's it.
There we go.
Oh, let's hang on. The magnificent hall. The magnificent hall is the home. No, I'm sorry about this. The magnificent hall is the home of the Willis. The magnificent hall is the home of the magnificent hall. Am I on camera? Right. So why the paper mache columns? Why the plaster of Paris nymphs? That's his fault. Why the paper mache columns? Why the plaster nymphs?
Sorry. Oh no. There you go.
Why the paper mache columns? Why the nymphs? And why? Why the paper? No, hang on. Why the paper? You're stuck. And this is where the prisoner would be. And this is where the prisoner Once the prisoner was called, he'd be through this gate, the gate firmly shut behind him, along this dark passage, waiting in the court for his fate. And he's not
Into it, that's all.
Once the prisoner's name was called, there was no hanging about. This. I couldn't open it. Oh, brilliant. Oh, brilliant. Once the prisoner was called, there'd be no hanging about. You can't get out.
Yeah, nice rap.
That's fine.
Come on, Mr. Universe.
No, oh, Jesus. And this is where the prisoner would be walking up. And walking down. One could say.
I like it.
See you later. Hey. One could say the judge was flushed. Why have I got this blessed in? One could say that he was
Stand by, we're rolling.
One could say that the judge was flushed with Victorian. Doesn't work, doesn't it? No.
What's your thing in it? Sure, what's your thing in it?
That was brilliant.
Loved it.
I
I don't think you'd have got Phil Spector to produce your album. We're talking about perfectionism. Like 496.
Exactly. I was doing, and it's funny how we never, something happened to this particular tape, and what has happened was I was talking about the last duel in Liverpool, and I went up by Pembroke Place. I was filming there, and anyway, I'm talking about this camera and everything was set up as that. I'm talking about these like two fellas shooting each other, and these three old ladies, genuine this. These three old ladies, just like standing over there, and I was, and I said one of them right in the eye fell dead. And this old lady said, hey, you're always coming down to Liverpool to talk about murders. And I'm going, no, it happened in 1805. Never mind, it happened in 1805. You're always talking about murders and it not happened to you last night. I said, no, isn't it? Oh, I should have seen it. It was hilarious. So it's just one of those things, but he never had it. Unfortunately, he didn't have it on we had it, but something happened, so we couldn't use it because those three old ladies absolutely hilarious. Calling me for everything. Said, I know you're from Granada Report. So it's just shows you how people get involved and whatever, with these particular things, these bloopers sort of thing. Because you'd say, trying to talk about the Willis organ, because at the time it was the biggest in the world when it was put in, that organ in St. George's Hall. And I just couldn't get into it. I said, how can I get around that? That was the biggest in the world by Willis. I'm glad you hung around for that, Derek.
Oh, it was fun. It was very good, mate. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay.
Don't forget, you've got your little notes there, haven't you? I've seen you writing them down, to talk about.
Yeah, I've made a note, and we'll have plenty to talk about again. Be brilliant.
Excellent stuff. Derek, thank you so much for your input in the first hour of the show. Absolutely amazing. And there was things there that you were coming out with that, I never had a clue about, to be honest. And the comments as well, made up with the comments. Thank you so much, Derek. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Cheers. Cheers, Anthony.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet Derek. Thank you.
That's great. Wasn't he brilliant?
Absolutely brilliant.
He's a lovely man, isn't he? And he knows so much.
I tell you, the biggest driving force for me forever since I was a kid was music. Just the stories of it, the music, everything. I haven't read Derek's book yet. I'll have to go out and make it my business.
It's unbelievable, It's like it's that thick.
Yeah.
It's that thick. It's that thick. It is. Like it's like an encyclopedia. It really is.
Well, that's
like
what he's talking about. Yeah.
Oh, poor JK's leaving us. He said, "Good night, Frank, Anthony, and Derek. You'll never walk alone." That's lovely.
Okay.
Good night, JK. See you tomorrow night, JK. Don't forget, tomorrow night, the football show. And look, Tony LFC was laughing his head off at those outtakes. Laughing. Anyway.
Take two.
Take two. Yeah. I just want to go through it. I think there's pictures.
Oh, your photo.
I think there are. I'm not quite so sure. No, they're not. Anyway, we've got the likes of, you're an artist, right? And I meant to mention to Derek there, who was your favourite band? I think he's mentioned them before. I forget who it was. But I wanted to mention, who's your favourite band? Who was your favourite band as you were growing up, or favourite individual singer? And
the biggest by a trillion universe would have to be the Beatles. Mm-hmm. I was born in 61, so by the time I started to be aware of radio and what was the sounds that surround us in the day, it was them day in, day out, and they made me want to pick up guitar and stuff. There's other people who I absolutely adore and have done all my life, and still collect vinyls, replay stuff that I've lost. But they were the biggest for me, you know, until I discovered blues music.
Dementia on the show. Went to make me cocoa, and I came back and you lot talking about big organs.
And 3 old ladies.
There you go, you see. There
It's
you go.
like a seaside postcard, isn't it?
It is. And it can go like that so easily. So easily.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you what I always get asked, Derek, you know, historically, that is. Historically. What's your favorite building, and what's your favorite piece of history about Liverpool? And when I tell them, especially my favorite piece of history, they're amazed. They're amazed because I picked this particular little chunk of a history. Do you know what it is? Have I ever mentioned that my favorite piece of history about Liverpool?
No, we haven't.
I'll tell you what it is. Tell you what it is. You know St. George's Hall. You know the Stebble Fountain.
Yeah.
Stebble Fountain. And you've got Wellington's monument, right?
Yeah.
The Welly at the top there. And that particular statue, brilliant statue, by the way, absolutely brilliant, of where the Iron Duke. And when I tell them what it was made from, they're quite surprised. And that's my favorite piece of history, because it's actually made from the French cannons captured at Waterloo, his most famous victory, to the defeat of Napoleon. Melted down on that statue.
Wow.
I think that's a fantastic piece of history.
It is,
What
it
you're
is.
actually looking at.
Yeah.
You know, that metal.
Well, it's like that thing, and it making something beautiful out of something that was so harmful, dangerous, lethal.
Violent. That did take lives.
Yeah.
Not could take lives, did take lives.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, that's the juxtaposition, isn't it? You know, from still art, beauty, to the thing that took lives.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing. It really is. It's the irony as well. The irony of that particular statue. And that's my favourite piece as well of history. And when I get told, Anthony, I'm going to ask you first, what's your favourite building in Liverpool?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Wow. To pick one.
It's impossible. Thank you. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible to pick one, and that's what I say to people. That's what I say to people. Because if you look around you, you know, you go, well, I like that one. Then you go, oh, then I like that other one. And well, what about that one? You're going around, you're getting into your mind, you know, the particular buildings in Liverpool.
Yeah.
You've only got to look at every single neoclassical building in Liverpool. You know, when you go down.
I can tell you one of my favourite views, which conjures up a lot of majestic buildings, is as you're describing there, by the fountain, the top of William Brown Street, looking down. So out of your left eye, you've got St George's Hall. Out of your right eye, you've got the art gallery, and then down to the top. I think that is one of the most awesome views.
It's enchanting, really, because as you said, if you're sitting on the big steps of the monument and you're looking down, and as you said, on your left, you've got in your eye, you've got the wonderful St George's Hall, and facing the St George's Hall, you've got the old Western Hotel, which is going to be a hotel again. You know, that's incredible building. So you've got those two right facing one another, you know, next to the Empire. You've got those two beautiful buildings. And then, as you said, looking down William Brown Street, you've got, on your left, you've got the gardens.
Yes.
St. John's Gardens, and to your right, you've got the wonderful, wonderful other neoclassical buildings. And dead ahead from the street down, you've got one of the greatest, which is in one of the top 6 entrances in the world of tunnels, and that is the Art Deco tunnel, Mersey Tunnel. You've got that there, right there. And then a bit further up, you've got Dale Street, which has some magnificent buildings. As you know.
Awesome. Yeah. Brilliant.
And that's just you sitting there looking down.
Yeah.
Looking down, you know, and as you said, you know, on your left you've got the both the old hotel and St George's Hall. Yeah,
it's almost. Well, there's a couple of times you've mentioned about the feeling of walking in someone else's footsteps, walking through time, and that to me, that walk down towards the Birkenhead Tunnel is like walking in time, because it's almost untouched by the modern age. You could blink your eyes and you've got this sense of awesomeness. The history that's just there.
And if you're sitting on those steps there, and you're looking down, it's incredible. Just look at that for a moment. Just look at that, Anthony, for a moment.
It's
like Rome.
Yeah,
it's like ancient Rome. It really is.
It's amazing. I've sat and drawn that and scribbled it over years and years and years, and it still never ceases to amaze me that view. Rain, snow, sun, dark. You know, it's a beautiful view at night time now.
And absolutely beautiful at night time. It really is all lit up. It's fantastic. And when you look now at the stone and the colour of the stone, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I always remember a Swedish couple of all people telling these people from Winchester, and I was standing in a queue in Rome to go into the Colosseum, and I heard these people talking. You know, there was a few people up from where I was standing, and they were saying, "Well, we went to Liverpool." These are the Swedish couple. We went to Liverpool, and when we get off at Liverpool, you thought that you were stepping into either ancient Athens or ancient Rome. Wow. Just like here, and nothing would be out of place. And they said, the people said that is, we've never been outside. We've never been outside, north. They flew to Scotland once, they said. They flew to Scotland once. And I went up, I had to go up. Because what they said was, when we came out of Lime Street, there was this unbelievable building, a magnificent building that you could just say that you're in the centre of Rome. And it was St. George's Hall, because I went up to them. And I said, you're talking about my city, you're talking about St. George's Hall when you come up at Lime Street. And when I was talking to them, those people actually came up to Liverpool. I said, if you ever want to go around, I'll take you. And I took them around Liverpool, and they were absolutely delighted. And they said, we'll be back with friends.
Yeah.
Because all they heard was bad publicity about that. But look what Jason's put up for you, Anthony. Isn't that fantastic?
Absolutely. Yeah.
As you said about the, in night and, the light. And
the night falls,
yeah.
it doesn't lose its beauty. It's
No.
still it's amazing.
Yeah.
You could inspire any writer, short storyteller, artist, just to sit there, absorb that scene, and then they'll come up with something. But to walk around it, it's just I love the story attached to the fountain of the I don't know, it's 6 or 8 little, we'd call it little kiddies, the lads, and sitting around the fountain, and one particular, it's a famous photograph, and one particular member of the group, the kids, grew up to be a famous jazz musician.
Okay.
I'll have to research the story because I don't want to show my ignorance, but it appears in all the history books, throughout our lives. And there's a scene where the kids are all sitting in the fountain, and it's where are they now?
It's unbelievable. I've got a picture of it, but it is a picture of that sitting around. And an old mate of mine, he actually, that's it. Now a mate of mine, he got that picture, and there was a little school photograph of me, and he superimposed it on one of these kids.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there with all these kids.
Wow.
It's brilliant the way he did it, sitting there like it. But look at that picture. Barefoot days.
Yeah, just phenomenal.
And in the backgrounds, what you've got, which is, it's an absolute disgrace, I'm being honest. You've got a Commutation Row.
Yeah.
Commutation Row, which was the only row or a group of buildings together that was exempt from window tax. And I tried to save them. And they said, oh, they're unsafe. I said, they're not unsafe. Behave yourself. They're not unsafe. Because what you had in the middle of those, besides the pubs you had, fantastic pubs, but what you had right in the middle, what you had was the very first blind school in the world, in the entire world, Edwin Rushton's blind school. It was to help the blind, for God's sake, and they pulled it down. They pulled it. Look at that building on the right. Look at it. Fantastic. Right on the end of Commutation Row. And they pulled it down. The whole of the row. I could never forgive them for that. Ever. But, city progresses and whatever. And there it is. Do you see, I'm going to tell you what building it is from that one. Like, you've got a Igson's there, you just go down to your left as you're going along. And what you see, you'll see a building in between, it's a brown building, in between two, not the big brown building, by the way, the one further down, it's a brown building in between two. That was the very first blind school in the entire world. Edwin Rushton acquired it. And it's just, it's a shocking indictment on, city planners and councils. Councils were saying they were unsafe. No, they were not unsafe. They weren't unsafe. That particular picture there, that's only done in the 60s. And how unsafe could they become like a few years later? Come on.
Well, it's like you said 5 minutes ago. It's Rome, Venice. Venice comes to my mind first. When you look at those buildings, just
and you're talking like, you're not talking modern day buildings or anything like that there. Because Edwin Rushton opened up 1794, the first blind school. 1794. So those buildings were there then.
Yeah.
And it's shocking. It's a shocking indictment, as I said. It's just horrible. And Gary Rigby said, it's a shame. I remember the square in the 60s and 70s, always busy. It had a taxi rank there. I think he's talking about Williamson Square, yes. Mark Kinnish says about Williamson Square, it's gone right down. Remember a few years ago, the council asked the public how they'd like it developed. 5 years on, still waiting. You're right, because in Williamson Square, it became the cold storage place. And we used to pass it, you know what I mean? Just walk past it. But that particular cold storage place was the Theatre Royal, where the likes of Sarah Siddons acted. Sarah Siddons, one of the greatest actresses of all time. You had Charles Dickens in a play there when he was an amateur actor. Charles Dickens. Franz Liszt. Yeah. I forget what composition it was, but he finished off with a composition in there, or he was, continued writing this particular composition when he came to Liverpool. He was touring the country and, playing his music. And he I don't know whether he finished it or he was still writing, part of it while he was in Liverpool, in that theatre, the Theatre Royal.
Wow.
It's incredible. Absolutely amazing. And there it is. There's the Theatre Royal. That became the cold storage.
Beautiful.
It was far bigger than that, as you can see. It was far bigger. But an absolute brilliant theatre. And they just pulled it. It really annoys me. They pulled it down. You had a John Lewis Theatre down by the cathedral, the Anglican cathedral, right on the road. And you had David Lewis, who was a philanthropist, who built two hospitals, the north and south of the city, the Royal Southern and the Northern Hospital, for us, for the underprivileged. And he built a theatre because we couldn't afford to go to the theatre. So we built a theatre, the John Lewis Theatre, and they pulled that down, a red brick building. Yeah, there it is. There's the theatre. Look at that. Thanks, Jake. Look at Jason's a wonder, isn't he? And that, the Union Cold Storage, But that was a theatre. That was the Theatre Royal. So you could imagine the likes of, there you have it.
Wow. Wow.
And you had the likes of a Liverpool actor, Brutus Booth. Brutus Booth, right? And he used to act there. And what had happened was, he loved doing all the Shakespeare stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a dagger I see before me? You know, and all these wonderful, and loved playing. And they actually played, someone wrote a play, and he said, I'm not appearing in that. It's absolutely toothless. He said, oh, I can't play in that. And he said, you got to. Or you'll have to move on. So, Julius Brutus Booth, right? Julius, get onto that name. Julius Brutus Booth. So he went, oh, well, okay then. So anyway, he played. Now, before that play, he used to walk around the streets of Liverpool, and people used to admire him. Oh, they loved him. There he is. They loved him. All right, Julius. Hello, my friends. How are you? You know, and all this, right? And anyway, he plays in this play,
Looks
and
like
they started booing him. And back in the day, Anthony, they never only booed you, they threw tomatoes and everything, cabbage leaves and whatever, you know what? Yeah.
oh God.
So he said, I'm off, he said. I shall never play in Liverpool again. I am going. So they all said, well, sit down then, go ahead. So he decided to pack up, and he said, I'm going off to a far off lands where they shall appreciate the bard and yours truly. Me. So they went, yeah, okay, to that. Right. And he brought his son with him. He brought his little boy with him. And his little boy grew up to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth. How about that?
Wow. You told me that story many, many years ago when we met, and I've forgotten, other than the point where you said, and he took his little boy with him.
Yeah.
Then, my God.
Julius Brutus Booth.
You would not wish a little boy on that kipper, would you?
But anyway, you know, it's a great story. But you know, you've got your comments there, and Arthur Schofield, he says, thinking back, I recall illumination of the full swing, which went from left to right, giving the impression of movement. Yes, it did. I remember that clearly, as though it was yesterday, Arthur. And Gary Rigby was there. A reason they destroyed Liverpool. In Leeds, hardly anything has been touched. They still have the old Victorian buildings. We've got loads of Victorian buildings, but it was just absolutely ridiculous, Gary. The way one of the reasons why they got rid of so many as well, they were doing a ring road, what you call a ring road around Liverpool. You know, this is like in the 60s. Oh, we'll do this, and we'll do that, and we'll get that. And they had to knock fantastic buildings down. And the ring road never got built. It's like the tram system. They went to Kirby, and as they were going up to Kirby, you know, they were destroying homes. And people said, well, what are you coming in? But no, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to move. Well, you have to, because the trams are coming through here. And they was forcibly moved. You know, they were compensated, obviously, but they were forcibly moved. These are ancestral homes belonging, you know, like families who grew up there, all the memories, you know, wiped out. And the tram system never got built. pathetic. And this is the way, that's how some buildings unfortunately go. But one thing that we still retain is we have more Georgian buildings than anywhere else, with the exception of, obviously, of London. We've got more Georgian dwellings than Bath. Think about that. And, and as Dementia Runner says, so sad they pulled our historical buildings down. Yes, the greatest injury to, I can't compare the two criminal acts, in my opinion, two criminal acts of vandalism by the city planners, to the contrary of what you get told, which is a load of garbage, is the demolition of the Custom House that was opened in 1828 of John Foster Jr.'s design, and it could have easily have been saved. They were pleading, the preservationists were pleading with the council, don't pull it down, please don't. And they were saying, oh yeah, I've got to pull it down, it's all badly damaged. The only thing that was damaged was 3/4 of it was gutted with water. That's all, water. Putting the fire out. I love this man, Jason, love him. Look at that. That should have been right face. Well, now today, at that colour, by the way, right facing the Albert Dock on Shabbat's Park, as we know today. Look at it, bigger than St. George's Hall, bigger, more impressive. And people think, you couldn't get more impressive than St. George's. Yes, that one there. That was. And it kills me when every time, and the preservationists at the time were saying, it can easily be saved. But what they didn't know, the preservationists, that they were taking each stone and they were marking it because the Americans wanted to buy it.
Oh, for God's sake.
And they was putting it in Anfield Cemetery, these big stones. And the Americans got fed up. They said, it's taking too long. Now we don't want it now. So they had to completely flatten it. And that's why. And the other was the overhead railway.
Yeah.
The overhead railway, the very first electrified overhead railway in the entire world. In the entire world, Anthony.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do this filming, in the summer. You know what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Because all these are becoming on as well. The likes of these wonderful buildings I've mentioned.
Yeah.
And the overhead railway. That'll be mentioned.
Yeah.
And as you know, it was called, the
across the globe, isn't it?
Yes.
It's working in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gave the blueprint, Liverpool, and lots of people don't know this, but we had the blueprint for the very first tram system. No one had ever brought a tram. They didn't know what trams were, and we had the blueprint, and they said, we won't put it in Liverpool. We won't do it. We'll put it in Birkenhead. We'll see how it runs. And if it's any good over there, we'll put it here in Liverpool. So Birkenhead had the very first tram system in the entire world.
Wow.
And people don't realise this.
Tracks are still there. The tram lines are still there.
Yeah, well, they have I don't know whether it's every summer, but they have a tram coming out, as like a little tourist thing. And you can get on it and travel around and whatever. Only a short journey, but at least you're on a bloody tram.
Yeah. And
where do you Sorry.
No, it works. Still works.
Yeah. That's what and we're the only major city in the country without a tram system. And we invented it. Because of stupidity by the council. It's so annoying. So annoying. It really is annoying. There's our Romanian friend here. Good evening, guys. Hope you're well. Ali Noose. Yes, we are, Ali. Thank you so much. Both of us. And Gary says the old sailors' home in St. Paul's Eye Hospital, yes, and the custom house was a crime. The sailors' home, 1974, they pulled down for no apparent reason, and the history surrounding. John Cunningham designed that in it opened its doors in 1841. And if you could imagine that sailor's home, we would say we were sailors, and no matter what part of the world you came from, at least there it is. Look at that. There it is, the sailor's home. Look at the colour of it, Anthony.
Just beautiful. Just absolutely.
Just look at the colour of it.
Gothic.
And when you look at it like that, you go, wow, whoa, look at that. And the history behind it, you're talking about wars. You're talking about sailors and soldiers and all all the armed services. It wasn't just sailors, but they went in there and they came through those gates for the very last time. Some of them, the very last time, walked through them, came out again to go to a war. All the wars, lads went to the Crimean War, the Indian Wars, where Liverpool's first recipient of the Victoria Cross, that is, Liverpool's first recipient, John Kirk, in 1857, in India. He walked through there, most probably. No, he didn't. But what I'm saying is, there's lads who like that, going to India, going to the Crimea, going to the First World War, going everywhere, all over, to fight bloody wars. And they walk through there, never to return. And the only thing I'm very proud of, me and a lad named Phil Griffiths, both of us located what you see now down in Paradise Street are the gates belonging to, and we got them back.
Yeah.
Me, and Phil Griffiths. And I wasn't even invited down to, when they unveiled them. Because all these arseholes were, get jumping on the bands, right? Who are you? Who are you?
You haven't got a badge.
Anyway, I just said, I've had enough of this. As I said to Phil, we've got the gates back. I'm walking away now. You and I got them. And everyone was made up. Wasn't even invited down.
You know what? I had a brief chat to our mutual friend, gentleman Rod Holmes,
Oh, Rod.
and he was so proud that they were there.
Yeah.
So you take that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
You know,
you, my
well,
blood
without,
brother.
there they are.
There they are.
There they are there.
There they are. Yeah.
And you see where the eagle is on the right, not on the gate, on the building there. You see an eagle on the right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that, believe it or not, was the very first. You're not going to. This is unbelievable, but it's absolutely true. That was the very first stroke American embassy.
Yeah.
Stroke consulate.
I'd heard that.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I'd
That's
heard
why the American Eagles there.
late in the 80s when they turned the bottom part into a pub.
Yes.
I was in there with Laney, and some guy was giving me the story of it, which I'd heard bits of.
Yeah.
And wasn't it at one time a recruiting office?
Yeah.
For
See,
civil.
why they did it? It was during the American War of Independence, and the American ships were still coming here, and it was Thomas Jefferson who said, we've got to send over, representatives to this Liverpool, simply because we've still got interest there. So you'll have to send someone over. So they sent a fella in 1791 because he'd been to Liverpool as a young Irishman before he went over to America.
Oh.
And his name was James Morey, and that's where he lived until they got accommodation for him. As they said, better accommodation in Rodney Street, and I know exactly where he lived. So he was the very first American consul anywhere in the world, here in Liverpool, and that's where he originally lived.
Beautiful.
It's incredible, isn't it? You know that this is your history at its finest, Anthony.
Yeah.
This is Liverpool history. It's an incredible historical city. Yeah. It really is. And the unfortunate thing is, it could have been a lot better. Just imagine you and I going down to the custom house to have a walk around.
Oh.
Just imagine you and I going up the steps to get onto the overhead railway.
Yeah. No.
Just imagine going there to the wonderful Sailors' Home to have a look around to see what it was all about.
No.
The balustrades, I don't know whether I've told you this, but the balustrades are from. They're just like where the Liverbirds is, there, and all those like symbols and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, the balustrades inside the Sailors' Home were just like that, and they went to. They're still there today. God blimey. It's a bit of a resource. And remember The Prisoner on the telly?
The TV program years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Port Merion.
Port Merion, I did, yeah. Well, every one of them are in Port Merion.
Wow.
Every one, they're taken care of, but that's where they are. Isn't Jason great?
Jason is on fire tonight, to tell you. He's great.
He didn't know what I was going to talk about. He just didn't know. he never has a clue because I didn't know what I was talking about either. Just off the cuff. But these are these are the pictures that, it's so sad.
Just mind blowing.
Oh, there's a nice comment there, look. Mark Simons. We're proud of you, Frankie. Council is a disgrace and needs replacing. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Mark. They have all been useless. I can't stand Steve Rotherham, says Gary Lee. And we know, Matt, Steve, don't we? Don't we, Anthony?
Yeah.
Ali Nuss. Too bad nobody cares about history anymore. We all forgot. Same in my country. Every village you have an 800-year-old church almost falling down. Nobody cares. It hurts. That's Ali Nuss, people. Romanian. Romanian.
It does hurt, Ali, but we care, and at least that's a start. We add our voice too.
Do you know what? I was talking to a Romanian. I'm talking years ago, and he said to me, "Do you know how our country got its name, Romania?" I said, "Yeah." He went, "Tell me how." I said, "By the Romans." When he went up there, he just said, "Yeah, Romania, Roman, Romania, Roman." Yeah. You are correct, my friend. You are correct. I think I've got no Romanian accents. I think Ali will hit me over the edge with the accents. You don't sound like a Romanian, Frank.
Because I've got less.
And Mark Innes says, there's one piece of the Sailor's Home on display at the Liverpool Museum. I remember it when they were clearing, when it was the, when it was the historical consultant for Liverpool One.
Yeah.
One of the lads, I don't know who it was, I used to talk to this fella. I forget who he worked for, some officers. And he said, listen, what we've got here. And he said, do you want it? It's a big, massive piece of sandstone, sandstone, but anyway, this, with the liver birds on. And it was from the Sailor's Home. He said, do you want it? He said, yeah. I said, that won't fit on my mantelpiece. Huge thing, I said, I can't lift that. And I'm wondering if that's the same thing that Mark mentions. There's a piece of Sailor's Home on display. I wonder if that's it, because I said to this fella, give it to the museum. They will love that. I'm just wondering if it's that. And Mark Simons says, wasn't the marbles from the roof of St. George's Hall kept somewhere, Frank? I think what you're thinking of is the frieze of St. George's Hall, which, that to me now, St. George's Hall is never finished without that frieze. And that frieze was done by a chap named Nickel, and it went up in 1854. And it showed you then 650 years of history of Liverpool, the history of Liverpool going right back, with Britannia right in the middle. And unfortunately, as they said, they made an excuse to take it down and to clean it. And someone said to me, I wanted it back up. And I'm talking years later, after they put it down. And I get a phone call one day. I don't know how he got my number, actually. But he got my number, and I went up. And to Dingle Mount. Dingle Vale. And there was a little corporation yard there, a little council yard. And he said to me, "Yeah, Frank," and it was that. It was all chopped up. But I thought, like, that could be salvaged. This is the frieze. And I got it in foot. I told somebody, during the council or whatever, and I said, "It's salvageable. Leave it with us. Leave it with us." And when I inquired a few months later, it was underneath, it was used as a road service. They just chopped it up and used it as a car. And, what can you do? You can't do anything. And that was that.
Well, you can do what you've just done, which is the most valuable thing.
Ali Nusha, he told you that because nowadays many people mismatch Romans with Roma people. We are all Romanians of this thing. We want people to know. Yes, of course. Yeah, of course, Romans with Roma people. Yes, of course they do. They haven't a clue. And there is, I'm sorry there, Ali, I've got to go on to this. And there is the frieze. Look at it. It's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
Michelangelo couldn't have done finer.
Oh, unbelievable. There's Britannia in the middle, look. Looking down on a people's, and that's 650 years of history gone in one fell swoop. And I wanted it when the Renaissance, shall we say, going on about it with Liverpool 1 and leading up to the Capital of Culture 2008 and coming up to our birthday in 2007, our 800th birthday. And I was pleading for someone to look at this. I said, get it back up. I said, all right, get sculptors or whatever. And there was a lad named Martin Foote, Scouser, who lived and worked, and still does, in Florence, Italy. And he did a little thing. He said, I could do that. I could do that out of marble. Out of marble. He said, and it'll cost 2 million. He said, but and I'll have it shipped over, fitted, everything. Insured, the old kit and caboodle for 2 million. Now, this is out of marble, the same size as that.
Yeah.
With Martin Foote, fantastic sculptor he is. And he went, no, it's too much. Too much for our history. That's the way I look at it. Nothing's too much for our history.
No. It's just too many governmental and political figures who know the price of everything but the value of nothing.
Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself.
It's just crippling. And Liverpool have had it for many years, and we're talking about it now, and it fires us up, and it fires our guests, our people who were with us.
I know. I'm trying, if I can remember, I'm trying to get it before. It's somewhere here, but you want to see it. Well, I have something, and I'll show you that later. I'll show you that. I'll try and Jason will remind me to dig it out. And it's the thing for that. It's the design for it.
Yeah.
I have it here.
Wow.
Anyway, great show, Frank and Anthony and Jason, once again. Tony LFC. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you,
And Ali
Tony.
Hughes says, that's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eddie Connor says, hi Frank, enjoying my debut on your Monday night show. Any info on the building at the top of William Brown Street? Think it was a courthouse, but never seen it open to the public.
Sessions House.
Yeah, well, that's where I filmed. I was inside there. If you've been watching us and watching the bloopers, where I'm sitting on the toilet, I was actually filming in there. And where you see me walking up these steps, saying, and this is where the prisoners walked up. And when I was pushing the thing as well,
Yeah.
This Jason again. You're talking about that, Eddie. You're talking about that. And that's, so that was inside there. That was inside there. Beautiful. We're lucky, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do away football fans sing about it? In your Liverpool slums. Whoa, in your Liverpool slums. Get there. Get the hell. So, it's not open to the public. I've been trying. Well, I stopped now, gave up through retirement. I've been trying to get us open for as a museum, a part of a museum, just to show the beautiful architecture in there. Yeah. It's so beautiful. And Mark Innish, only Liverpool Council can mismanage a work of art like that. Yes. Yes. And great show, Frank and Anthony, including Jason. Take care of you all, says Mark. And as he said, it's the bloopers, Frank, but fan picture of the building I just mentioned. Yes. Yeah. Well, get onto play it back, get onto the thing, and play the middle of it, where we finish, and you'll be able to see the bloopers, and you'll be able to see inside there. You'll be able to see inside there, Eddie. Anthony, noi finito. Anyway, we're finished now. Did you like that? That little bit of Italian for you there, like the Godfathers.
Loved it. Love it all. Yeah.
So I'll see you next week. I don't know whether, Anthony, I've got...
you got Gerard on?
Gerard Gilligan, yeah, and I'm going to show him that thing.
Yeah.
So if you people are interested, I've actually filmed something while stargazing, and it's incredible. I'm going to ask Gerard, what's this?
Yeah.
Filmed it. Filmed it. And I'm looking forward to that next week, Anthony.
Fantastic, yeah.
So you'll be with us again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed tonight. It's a lesson every week for me, Frank. You know that.
But you know what? Derek was absolutely wonderful. Let's say, I think Jason said, I might be wrong about next week. Let's see. Might only be you and me next week. Do you know what? He comes that cold. Oh, Gerard, the 29th, so it's only me and you.
Okay. I think a flask and some sarnies.
Yeah. Get a ladies, send me some up.
No problem.
All right, Sandy.
All right, Frank. Thank you for tonight. Thank you, Jason. No. Brilliant. Jason was a blinder tonight.
Yeah, he was. He was unbelievable.
And everyone, really thank you for your kind words and comments.
Isn't it nice, though? Isn't it? The likes of, I'll just go through some of these. They knocked down the hospital I was born in, Sefton General Smith Down Road. the first house I lived in, Willoughby Street off Tunnel Road, and my first school, Clint Road. Well, that, Tunnel Road, where you've got Tunnel Road, I think it's still there. I think it's like an antique sort of thing, a building, sandstone. That was the very first waiting room in the entire world. The entire world, first waiting room. Because when they built the railway, people were standing there, when it was raining. And they said, I've got to do something, these people. And they opened that. And it's still there in Tunnel Road, this particular place. I wanted to film there for one of the DVDs. And it wasn't open. And we only had that day to film it. And we had to bypass it. We should have just filmed outside and said this was the first waiting room, but we wanted to go in. Yeah. Anyway, we couldn't do it. Gary says, great show tonight, Frank and Anthony. Cheers. That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Not lovely.
Yes.
And Ali News, Romanian. We went international, didn't we? We had 2 Americans. We had the lovely Valley S, as you know, who just before the sun came, she said hello to us all. And Dennis Paparak from the Incurables from Tampa. He was on with us. And much respect, guys. See you next time. All the best from the Romanian friend. Thank you, Ali. See you tomorrow night, Ali, with the football show. Because he's a big red. Arthur Schofield, thoroughly enjoyed this evening, guys. Thanks to all concerned. Take care, all, says Arthur Schofield.
Cheers, Arthur. All the best.
And Gary says, yes, it is, Frank. Over from Edgehill Station. That's right. That's right. That's the first ever waiting there thing in the world. And Paul, Frank, what a fountain of knowledge you are. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's just, it was just like, we were just discussing things off the cuff, weren't we? Thank you so much. And thank you, Frank and Anthony. Great show again, lad, says Mark Simons.
Thank you, Mark. Glad
so, Mr. Anthony, next week?
Next week. I'd be delighted. Thank you, Frank.
God knows what we'll be talking about, though.
Well, he might do, but we'll get there first.
Yes. Yes. And I heard dementia run. That's love this. Right, lads, love listening to you all. Thank you, dementia run.
Thank you.
I've just got to thank now. I've just got to thank the sponsors of the show. Who Gap Painting Services. As I said, if you're an OAP, if you're an NHS worker, please get onto them, because you'll have a fantastic discount. Even if you want something done and you're not an OAP or you're not an NHS worker, get them in. They do a top jolly professional job. They really do. They really do. And that's who I have to thank for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle Show. I have to thank that wonderful man who's facing me, Mr. Anthony Brown. And he'll be back again next week. Thank you, Anthony. And I have to thank also Jason Pennington. But you see what Jason's like, he produces everything. He gets the guests on, and he really does everything behind the scenes. And I was just talking about building. He didn't know what we were talking about or what I was going to talk about. And when I mentioned things, he was just there, bang, 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 put everything up. That's what Jason's like. He's a great fella. And the most important people who I have to thank are you out there, simply because without you out there, there'd be no Frank Carlyle Show. You wouldn't see this very good friend of mine international artist, Anthony Brown. You wouldn't see Derek Shelmerdine. You wouldn't see any of them. You wouldn't see none of them. You won't see this Gerard Gilligan. And again, I've got to remind you, I've got John McCardle in a couple of weeks as well. John McCardle. And he's a lovely, lovely man. Lovely man. Friends of mine. Friends of the world is our John. And he'll tell you one of the funniest stories. Go to make a film in Australia. Brilliant it is. And he'll be explaining that. And it is funny. It's serious but funny, if you know what I mean. And it's just for me to say thank you so much. See you tomorrow night, all you football fans. We've got a lot to talk about tomorrow night. And I'll see you with me guests. Thank you so much, people. Love to you all. Love 'em.